Welcome. All right. What's good, everybody? It's your boy Patrick Okocha, aka StandPAT here. Today I'm going to be getting a chance to connect with two of my former students, or two former students who were in a program that I was affiliated with, who have sort of went on to do such amazing and transformational things. And during our time connected together at the nonprofit organization Year Up, we were all served on under the Student Ambassador Program, in which we were able to sort of take the program offerings through Europe and go into the community and be able to give back and really tell the stories of those who were in the program, who were sort of living that day to day. But since their time in the program, they have went on to do such amazing things, not only professionally, but also in the community. So I just wanted to give an opportunity to really elevate the work of these three queens. I call them Queen Triplets. Because they have just really, formed a bond and really given back to the program that I honestly say, quite frankly, is one of the most transformational programs that I've ever been a part of. So I'd like to introduce both Heaven Hamilton and Sophia Price. Heaven and Sophia, if you just want to give maybe about 30 to 40 second introduction as to who you are, maybe what you're doing, and we'll just kind of go into conversation from there.
Thanks,
Heaven, yeah, I guess Heaven, you can start.
Yeah. Well, I'm Heaven Hamilton. I'm Washington State born and raised. Since, leaving Europe, and just a little bit about my life right now, I'm a project manager, infrastructure project manager, and I have this career through Europe and the things I've been doing post Europe. Outside of that, I serve on the local board for Europe as well as the chair. I serve on the board of directors for Europe Puget Sound, and I'm also a member of 442, which is a social policy and system change group organizing in Kent, which is a city I grew up in. And I've been organizing with them for the last couple of months. That's going to be a lot of the work I'm going to continue on in 2021.
Awesome. Thank you, Heaven. How about for you, Sophia?
Yeah, my name is Sophia Price, and I'm also a project manager for Expeditors International. Also in the infrastructure space, I help my organization build out our regional data centers and move our systems into that space to work more efficiently in this work-from-home environment and grow technically. Outside of my core work, I am also on the Europe Alumni Board. I serve as the vice chair next to Heaven. I am passionate about helping support the community and the youth in the community, and help really embrace diversity and individuality. And beyond that as well, I'm also a student, so I'm going to school for business and cybersecurity, and it's really my goal to help others, like I mentioned, in the community and grow within the corporate structure to help change the dynamic that we currently live in.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Sophia. Both Heaven, you and Sophia, I just thank you for the work that you all are doing every day in your careers. As you all who are watching and listening can obviously observe, they are very busy, very active, and as young professional women of color, they're really going out and leading the example for many young women of color and even men of color. I think people who are really striving to do better for themselves. So to kind of keep along that vein, I would love to start off by asking each of you, and Sophia, we'll start off with you. The first question that I have for you is, what has been the greatest professional insight or lesson that you have gained thus far within your career?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson I've learned is to be an advocate for yourself and be the biggest advocate for yourself, and to continue to have a growth mindset. I think being stagnant is dangerous, and not knowing your power and your worth is really dangerous as well. So really tapping into the potential that then turns into power, and utilizing that to help catapult yourself into spaces to help bring other people up that were in a space that you were in.
Absolutely. Always making sure to advocate for others and know your own value and your own worth. Thank you for sharing that insight. Heaven, how about for you?
Let's see. I have some notes on this because, I think For me, I gained a lot of perspective when it comes to my corporate career, and also the corporate game that's played when it comes to your monetary value, and also when it comes to you being able to level up. And specifically, quick story, I was on the job market in April 2019, and it was painful. It was painful because of looking for a job, getting all of these rejections, and the mental space that I was in from the departure of my previous role. And of course, there are all these assumptions that are often made up, not only in our heads, but in the heads of others trying to get a job. It's, what does this person look like? What do they need to look like to be successful? And it's these assumptions that, if a person doesn't, shake your hand firmly, they're not confident. If a person doesn't have a college degree, they are not smart, they are not creative, they are not innovative. If a person, has a typo on their resume, they are not detailed oriented. And these assumptions, they are terrible because people are nervous. People are trying to build their own self-confidence up. They have families to support, and ultimately they are looking for a job, and they're also trying to play this corporate game, right? This structure that is keeping them there. And secondly, it took me a while to not only express my own worth when it comes to a monetary value working in a corporate space, but I can say that when I left my previous role, I had a coworker who may have been well-intended, but all the same, they had told me that I was never going to find anything as better as what I had right then and there. They were essentially telling me to reconsider leaving this role. You are never going to find anything as good as what you have now. And there was no amount of money that could have made me stay in that role. And so when I think about where I am today I have the job title that I was searching for, and I'm also making 40% more than what I was previously. But, had I listened to someone telling me, you're never going to find something as better, I would have been in a very terrible situation. So I think for me, it's been perspective. It's perspective and time, but it's perspective all the same.
Well, Heaven, thank you for that answer, and it's great that during that time in which you're seeking the next opportunity, you filled it with the opportunity to reflect and really think about moving forward, what it is and how you foresee yourself within your own professional identity. So that's very important to sort of continue on that theme, on that thread. Heaven, I believe the last time that we got the opportunity to see each other was at the Europe Professional Olympics, and one of the first things that I commented on when I saw you was obviously your appearance. I think your hair was everything. And you know how I feel about personal, authenticity. More profoundly, though, was your confidence wearing that. You exuded it like it was almost nothing. Could you elaborate further on, one, your hairstyle choice for that Professional Olympics event? And secondly, more broadly, could you speak to the importance of owning sort of that spirit and embracing your identity, especially in that moment?
Well, first and foremost, I want to say that I love my hair, and my hair is an expression of me. I have a very long journey and story when it comes to my hair, my styles, my confidence within myself for wearing it. And when it came to Professional Olympics, I just got some Senegalese twists, and I was soon going to be getting some box braids. But I wanted a style that I had not yet had as a speaker. I've done a lot of speaking engagements for Europe, so I wanted a different style. So that ended up with me taking my twists, putting them in the front, adding the buns to the top, and I love that style. It made me feel happy, and it's how I wanted to present myself. And there's importance in not only owning and embracing your identity. And for me, as a Black woman, it means I wear my hair however I see fit. It could be my natural style, it could be braids, it could be protective styling, but I got options, and none of them are up for debate. And today, I actually see it as embracing my hair to the next level, right? In a couple of months, I'm going to be getting sister locks. And for me, that is where I'm going to take my own confidence and natural hair journey to the next level. Not only because locks are oftentimes up for debate for whether or not they are professional, whether or not, you can do all these things to it, but for Black hair, having locks is probably the best way to go. It's low manipulation. It allows your hair to grow, and it's such a powerful hairstyle, and another hairstyle that's not up to debate. And there are so many places today that will discriminate against locks and natural hair. And they have the audacity to essentially tell me that I can't wear my hair the way that it naturally grows out of my scalp. And I have a huge problem with that. And so locks are a journey, and it's the journey that I now want to go on. I think there's confidence in embracing everything that you are, including your hair. I think for Black people, our hair is very important to us, and how we wear it should never be a discussion, but how we wear it also tells a little bit of our story. So that's where I draw my confidence at from it. I knew that hairstyle was going to look really nice. And I'm glad that you noticed it. It was just part of how I wanted to present myself that day.
That was powerful. Thank you so much for that answer. And when it comes to locks, I too am a member of the locks community. After my first position at the University of Washington, I felt, in that role, I wasn't able to really embrace myself, and I performed well. I was able to sort of accomplish and achieve things that at the University of Washington had not been seen. But I just think about how much more I could have done if I were able to do it under the guise of my full self and my full identity. So, after that experience, I told myself I went on my own locks journey, and kind of to your point, who I am and the way that I choose to present myself is not up for debate. Professionalism is not predicated on perception. It's based off how you actually go upon your work. And I think that one thing that is evident is that, through your work and through your identity, it's never impacted your work. If anything, it's been an asset, not a detriment to it. So thank you for sort of elaborating on that. So, Sophia, I guess I'll give you the opportunity. Do you have any personal thoughts when it comes to identity, embracing your uniqueness? This is an opportunity you have to kind of speak your mind.
Yeah, I think that that's something that I struggled with a lot in my life, was embracing my identity and trying to figure out where I fit in. And it took me a long time to really realize that I don't fit in anywhere. I am my own person. I am my own identity, and I'm Sophia, and that's the best person that I can be. I'm biracial. I grew up in an area that was predominantly Asian, and I had times in my life where I felt like I didn't fit in with any which side. My household was raised by my Asian grandmother and my mom being at home most of the time while my dad was working. So to me, that was my culture. But when I went face to face with students, when I actually went to school, or when I was riding the school bus or the metro bus with my grandma, it was, who's this white girl, right? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm one of you guys. And then it also was a struggle growing up with my appearance and not understanding how to embrace who I was. And that had a drain on my self-confidence as a kid. So as I grew up, I really realized how powerful my individuality was, and who I was as a person, and the actions and how I spoke said enough for myself and put me in spaces where people wanted to be around me anyways. And trying to fit a mold or a box of being like somebody else just didn't work for me. So it took me a while to really understand how powerful I was as a person and how cool it was to be Sophia, and embracing my culture and embracing my background. And once I was finally able to do that, I think I felt more free and less constrained by the societal boxes that I felt like I needed to fit in.
Absolutely, that's powerful, and thank you for Sophia for sharing that sort of transformation. As one thing that's very apparent is that identity is not something that is static. It's very much dynamic, and it's evolving, especially as you gather life experiences. Identity is something in which race is a social construct. The concept of it, the way in which we see ourselves, and the way in which we're living to either strive to it, adhere to it, or be the converse, or be sort of on the other end of it. So the fact that you have to be in a box is not something that kind of, to your point, is warranted. I think you have to be able to see yourself growing and evolving and realize that the old Sophia may evolve, right? Or there may be parts of you that really lets certain aspects of you go, and not necessarily to negate those times, but to realize that you just sort of added, sort of as I see plants behind you, you've added onto those roots. So I guess to continue on with you, Sophia, I have a question for you. There's this famous James Baldwin quote, and it's about love, and the quote is, "Love does not begin and end the way that we seem to think it is. Love is a battle. Love is a war. Love is growing up. When you hear this quote, how does this resonate with you? Because I know that health and wellness is very important to you, and is also as evidenced by your fitness. But I want you sort of to extrapolate this, right? When you think about love outside of the traditional cultural norms, what does it mean to love while at war?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think it ties in well to kind of what I was just talking about. I think when we think of love, it's something that we all want, right? We all want to be loved by somebody or to feel love, and love seems like this serendipitous thing that it's so positive and shiny, and it's something that we want, right? But I think in order to love, in order to have love, you need to love yourself. And love is not a journey of rainbows and sunshine. Love is walking through the deepest, darkest valleys and finding the windows that shed light in it so that you can meet the tunnel at the end of it. And love is also going to ebb and flow. There's always the journey of self-love anyways. You're going to have times where you feel like you have figured everything out, and this is who I am, and I love myself entirely. But then you might make a step that's going to completely change the direction of where your life is, and you feel like everything is kind of crashing down, and you're headed towards that pitfall. And I think love is definitely a war, and it's not what it seems like it is, because it's figuring out what your strengths are and where you need to grow. And along that journey, you need to figure out how to really emphasize that growth and where you need to grow, and learn those lessons. And if you don't learn those lessons, you're going to keep walking down that dark valley until you learn the lessons that are going to help you get the key to the end of the tunnel. And so I think it's important to understand that in the journey of self-love, like how I was talking about when I was a kid, I really didn't love myself that much because I was so insecure in who I was. And it's really important to know that to embrace, I think, the peaks and those times where you figure out, okay, I am a strong person, I am a leader, but also understand that there might be times where you don't feel those strengths and you need to figure out how to really pull those back out again. And so love is not what it seems. It's not always shiny and bubbly, but it is beautiful. The journey is beautiful. And it's all about finding, I think, the beauty along the way and where your strengths are, and understanding that nothing is going to be easy your entire life, but you need to figure out the lessons along the way. And that's what makes life and love so beautiful, is that it's a constant flow of growth.
100%. I agree wholeheartedly with everything that you said. Heaven, I guess for you, during those months in which perhaps, you were transitioning and you're seeking a new opportunity, how are you able to sort of love yourself? How are you able to sort of maintain a positive outlook in spite of maybe some of the things that were negatively maybe influencing you, or maybe coming across, your mental on a daily or semi-weekly basis?
It was extremely hard. Like, there is no other way to put it. And, like, when I think of where we're at right now in 2020, a lot of us go, man, I wish I was back in 2019. And like, man, 2019 was rough, but granted, I would still go back. So when I was in that space, I had my family, of course, which, sometimes they understand my role, sometimes they don't. From their perspective, they're like, when are you going to get, another job? And I'm like, hey, corporate jobs don't work in the same way. They take time. I am constantly applying. I am constantly on LinkedIn, but I'm also getting a lot of rejection letters. What I found to be the hardest for me during that time was I was looking for a project management role, and I did not have project manager on my resume. So that was, an immediate blocker. sure, I could have put project management on my resume, but that was not my job title that I had previously. And while I could speak to the projects, while I had the certification, while I had the network, it just was not aligning in these interviews, right? So, I was going through, a bit of time of struggling, not only because I was mentally drained and told from the role that I had just left. I'm getting all of these rejection letters. I'm no longer in a place where I am making money, and I am scared. I am scared, and at that point in time, it was really hard to, love and learn and grow and love myself on that deeper level, like Sophia was just, mentioning. But I also did not allow myself to just take anything. So while on one hand, I did have that perspective of this is draining me a lot, but I am not going to take anything less. I want to be a project manager, something that I had wanted, since I had joined Europe, and I found out about the role, and I knew that I was best suited for that type of work. And sure, I could have taken any other analyst type role, any other technical analyst type role, but it's not what I wanted. And if I'm not out here getting what I want in this short amount of time, what am I out here for? So telling myself that, I think that was, a form of my own confidence. It was that inner heaven going, you can't just take anything. You left this job in pursuit of something greater for yourself. So continue on. And it may take a little bit longer. And that's fine because, luckily I had my support. I have my boyfriend of almost 7 years in February, who was literally right there with me, like, hey, I have connections. He also ended up doing Europe. So he was sort of like my grounding force during that time. And, also just helping to guide me. I also have mentors that were super helpful, for me, just helping me get my mindset right, helping me articulate my work. So I have the support. I was adjusting for myself personally, for my own mentality. It ended up working out in a way that, it was the best case scenario for me because I'm still with the same role today, right? So everything ended up working out at the end, but it's really hard to see the light of the tunnel when you're just knee deep into it. And, if I could do anything, better, I would erase all of the negative thoughts that I have had at that time. And I wouldn't put so much stock on the rejection letters that I was getting, right? Maybe that was not the role for me. It's really hard, to see it at the time, but you just can't put stock in someone continuously rejecting you. They do not know me, and they also do not necessarily know the value and the work that I would put in for this role. But someone else will see that, and that's where I need to be.
That's very powerful, and I really even want to just sort of reemphasize the importance of betting on yourself, because that's essentially what you're doing. You're saying that I'm willing so much because I care about this work that I do that I'm willing to sacrifice my well-being to find the ideal opportunity and situations. And I don't think that's greedy. I think that is the par for course for greatness. There's no blueprint in terms of how you get to the top. That's why there's so few people at the top. But oftentimes when you get there and you get into those rooms, you realize, oh, you have made some serious sacrifices in order to be here. It's the reason why it's called the 1%. It's not just monetary. 1% of individuals, 1.2 or 1.8% of individuals have PhDs. Less than 1% of all NFL players will be enshrined in the Hall of Fame. So there's a difference between good and greatness, and oftentimes that takes sacrifice. And oftentimes through that, you're going to be questioning every step of it. I have left organizations without backup plans. And it wasn't necessarily because those organizations, I've never had a negative feeling with any colleague before. But when you want something better for yourself, they're not going to give it to you. I realize that. You got to take it. And you got to be confident in every decision that you make along the way. So it's great that you had a support system to reaffirm who you are, because yes, it's a very treacherous path to being great. But it takes, Robert Frost says, path less traveled. I'm paraphrasing, but I'll take that one. And I'll end up exactly where I want to be. So it seems like you did that, and it's worked out for the better. So thank you for sharing that.
I want to touch on that really quickly too,
Absolutely.
because really the importance of betting on yourself. I've bet on myself 2 times in the past 2 years, and both times they've paid off, or 3 years, and they've paid off so well. I've got way more on my return on investment than I would have even imagined. Before I did Year Up, I was working in retail, and I did the same thing. I quit my job in the middle of my shift without a backup plan. I thought maybe I was going to go to school, but then some way, somehow, Year Up ended up falling in my lap, and I ended up joining this program that was so transformative in my life, both professionally and personally. And then I get into my first role after Year Up, and kind of like Heaven said, I wanted more from that role. I wasn't exactly doing what I wanted, but I was encouraged by my management that I wouldn't really find anything better. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm trying to do. I wanted to be a product manager, and I came to my manager saying, hey, I want to go for this role internally. Can I get your support? And they were like, I don't know if you have enough experience, but I'm willing to bet on myself. I know that I do. And I know that as soon as I go in that interview, I'm going to be able to showcase what I have and why I'm going to do really well at this role. But it was a risk, because if I didn't get that, then I was stuck in my job with a manager that was going to kind of resent me and was, it wasn't going to be a great situation. And so I think life and your career is high stakes with your bets, right? You're going to take risks, and sometimes it's going to be all in, and you really got to put in your entire effort with all your chips, and really believe that you can do it. And betting on yourself is so important.
See, you all who are watching, who are listening, there is a value towards knowing your own value. And thank you both, Sophia and Heaven, for really sort of emphasizing and re-emphasizing that. I always say that I'm no better than any person, but I'm no less than either. And I think that everyone should really internalize that. Just know your own worth, know your own value, and people